When you know that you are queer, but your favorite drink is beer, that's gayish. You can bottom without stopping, but you can't stand going shopping, that's gayish. Oh, gayish, you're probably gayish. Well, life's just too short for narrow stereotypes, so it's gayish. We're also gayish. It's Gayish with Mike and Kyle.
Hello, everyone in the podcast universe. This is Gayish,
the podcast that asks the Instagays, sure, you're content creators, but are you content creators?
Why did that sound so like Carrie Bradshaw?
I asked myself alone in my bed in a very cute nightie.
I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz.
And we're here to bridge the gap between sexuality and actuality. And today, we're going to talk about Singapore.
Because of you, the voter at home, we're going to talk about Singapore.
Singapore and other slings you may have heard of.
Sling? Yeah. Slingapore?
Yeah.
Hot. I hope there's a gay nightclub called Slingapore.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
But first. Feedback and corrections. So we've got a couple of these. Did you want to go first?
Oh, sure. I can. We got a review that said,
oh, no.
Always wanted to ask, it would be great if you would say hi to me or your German fans in one of the next intros. Would love that so much. CHR period. I guess that's their name. CHR. And so to that I say no.
Nein. Ich will sprechen Deutsch nicht.
Yep. We also, a couple recent reviews, we got one that said terrible and gave us 4 stars.
Great.
It's my favorite.
Little mixed messaging there.
And there's another one that was 1 star that said, you are stupid, stop talking, you are stupid. So this is just an announcement that we are 25 reviews away from 1,000. So we would love it if you would both review us and maybe help counteract the stupid, you're stupid review. Give us a review. I might read your review.
Oh, I didn't know you were back to reading reviews. You didn't for a long time.
I didn't for a long time. Boy, it's a dangerous game I play with myself where I check in on reviews.
Well, okay. Also, we got this email from John. Hello, longtime listener and fan of the show. I'm writing an essay about podcast credibility in a world of fake news controversy.
Oh, God.
Where do you get your news sources? Are they checked? As a listener, how do we know this isn't another Fox News source to rally the troops? Thank you, John. To which I respond, John, don't question my process. Great. Now the news. No, I'm kidding. So most of the news that I pick up comes from a handful of sources. Those are Pink News, which is an outfit out of the UK that is doing their own journalism. Then I also look at The Advocate, which is a gay publication here in the United States that is a reputable source for especially legal stuff going on. That's their background is in advocating for gay rights, hence the name. I also look at Huffington Post, which has a Queer Voices section that if you haven't checked out, you should. They changed it from gay voices to queer voices not too many years ago, and anyway, it's a pretty good collection of other people's stuff, which is how HuffPo rolls. And then I will occasionally see stories that pop up in like local newspapers for things. Like if something gay ever makes national news, then I will try to go to whatever the local newspaper is there that's reputable to get the information. So hopefully that clears it up. I
would just personally for your own kind of news and information, I would highly suggest them.us. I think that's a very queer, trans, femme, non-binary, like very in line with what I believe, and that makes it very left, but I think that's a great news source.
Yeah. Okay.
But back to you. You were still saying stuff.
No, I wasn't. I was done.
But I mean, I think the other part of this is like we are also not a news podcast. We are not reporters reporting on the news. We are 2 people talking about the news. So
also not doctors.
Also, we're not a lot of things if you really break it down to how my dad sees me. But so our goal is not to provide you with the facts. We would be the Rachel Maddow opinion section where we're gonna give our own comments and commentary and that's hopefully we don't set up or try to establish that we are only here to report factual information like an NPR.
Yep. Exactly right. And now the news. Oh, or you didn't have any more.
Well, weren't we going to talk about the 300th?
Oh, you want to do that now?
Oh, we can do. Well, how about this? We have our 300th episode coming up.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
So fucking crazy.
That's so many episodes. If your grandpa was 300, he wouldn't be.
Right.
So near the end, we'll tell you more about some of the cool contests and shit coming up then.
It seems like just yesterday I was taping together 200 cups of Nutella onto a piece of poster board for our 200th episode. I am not doing anything that grandiose this time, Kyle, so don't expect it.
You know.
Or did I just say that because there's something that's going to happen? Anyway.
The double back.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And now the news.
Shut your mouth hole. It's time for your ear holes. News.
Okay, news the first. Last week in Atlanta, where they have an iconic rainbow crosswalk like a lot of other jurisdictions, somebody vandalized it again. According to the Atlanta Police Department, they spray painted a swastika on the intersection at 10th and Piedmont. And the LGBTQ liaison unit was notified by Zone 5 police units regarding the hate speech. So they are removing the vandalism with a pressure washer, and investigators are working on details surrounding the incident. Quote, Atlanta police immediately notified the mayor's office of the matter. Then ATL DOT scrambled a crew in the rain to remove the disgusting act of vandalism from our street. This is Atlanta Police Department Press Secretary Michael Smith. We thank the women and men of ATL DOT and APD for erasing the hate that has no place in our city in such a swift and efficient manner. Police are still investigating. Fucking swastikas. Like, I don't know. It's hard to tell, first of all, if there's more of this kind of thing happening because we're like it's being reported on, or if it's just always been like this. But I keep seeing more and more Nazi symbolism in against our community.
Yeah.
And
now that we as a country are no longer like committed to being anti-Nazi, that's like now apparently up for discussion whether like, wait, but were they good or not? Like the right has not confirmed that they are against Nazis. So,
Right.
I agree. I think I've seen more neo-Nazi shit.
Yeah, but like a full-on swastika on the rainbow crosswalk, part of me was like, what's your end game there? Like what like I don't I don't get it. Like, what did you expect to happen other than it's just going to be removed and you're pathetic? But then also I realize that like it's also clearly a sign of intimidation, right?
Yeah.
That like you're not welcome here. We hate you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the left and the right, like both parties are the same. Sure, one wants rainbows and the other wants swastikas, but they're both the same, you know?
Yep. Yep. And before anybody like writes in to like correct Kyle and say that the Nazis were socialist and socialists are left, you don't know your history. Shut the fuck up. You're stupid.
Oh, thanks, Mike.
Great.
Love it.
Yep. News the second.
Sure.
Okay.
Just
great.
preemptively on this segment too. Shut the fuck up. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm just going to say that regardless of what the news is.
Yeah. Okay. News the second. So I'm going to paint a picture for you, Kyle.
Okay, I'm ready.
In Wilton Manors, Florida, which you may recall I've talked about before on the show, is like the gayest place in like Florida for sure, if not the whole United States, in terms of like their entire city government is all queer people. Anyway, the police were called to the Corner Pub on Tuesday evening. And
sorry, did you say the Coroner Pub?
The Corner Pub.
The Corner Pub.
It's
okay.
Next to the Coroner Pub.
Great. Yes. Yeah. It's very dark in the Corner Pub.
Well, which if all had gone according to plan, they might have needed a coroner. They were called to the Corner Pub on Tuesday evening after an unidentified man entered the popular gay bar, called over the bartender, whose name is Joseph Shakespeare, placed a grenade.
No, it's not. Sorry, no, it's not. Okay.
Placed a grenade on the counter.
Oh, fuck.
And said, "I have guns in my car."
Okay.
Yep. So then, a regular patron at that gay bar, who is a gay former Marine, disarmed the man and ultimately sort of saved the day. So the bartender said, quote, "It kind of freaked me out a little bit." But I was thinking, just stay calm because we have a lot of people in here. This is our community, so I want to keep everybody safe. So former active duty Marine Daryl Darling stepped in. I don't know if it's Daryl or Darrell.
But regardless, he's Darling.
Yeah, he's Darling, Mr. Darling. Yeah, Sergeant Darling. I don't know what his rank was, but he overheard what the man was saying, immediately realized the severity of the situation. Quote, he was agitated at someone in the bar. He was looking to pick a fight. He had shown me a grenade immediately as I walked up. It looked real, which if a Marine thinks it looks real, probably real. But then instead of trying to physically disarm him then, he struck up a conversation to distract him instead, and that worked while Shakespeare was able to call the police and help the other customers leave the bar. The bar was completely empty, and then Darling convinced the man to leave the bar with him so they could hang out. So there's video of the moment that they walk outside onto the sidewalk, and the Marine immediately puts this guy on the ground and held him there until the police came seconds later. It turns out Wilton Manors police later issued a statement saying that the grenade was actually inert, and the man, quote, was intoxicated and in need of mental health services. He was distraught by the recent deaths of close friends. He was taken to a facility for treatment while the investigation continues. What would you do?
I would go run out like a fucking asshole. I would be no use in that situation. I would at first, I take so long to process things. I would probably laugh at first because I'm oh, clearly this grenade wielding person is joking. I don't understand the joke though. I would be horrible in situations that require instant intelligent action. What would you do?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think I wouldn't have had the genius response of don't do anything violent yet, give everybody else a chance to get the fuck out and then do it and then escalate, because I think that's brilliant and required very quick thinking that I would not have had. I think I probably would have, though, if I were within proximity, would have grabbed him or I don't know.
I like to think that I would have. It's interesting having some of the options, the option of talking to someone and just getting to know them. That's something I might be. I don't think I would tackle someone. I don't think I have those kinds of courageous bones in my body. But to talk to someone and distract them in a time of intense, that's something I might actually be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I just hear you hey, buddy.
Hi. You got a grenade?
Oh, is it that Bruno Mars song? Is that what's happening?
Jesus Christ. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's terrifying, too.
Yeah. People are fucking crazy, Kyle.
Yeah.
News the third.
Yeah.
So, one of my very, very favorite shows ever in the entire world, top 3 anyway, Sex Education is coming back in season 4, and on this season, Dan Levy of Schitt's Creek is going to be a major character in this. So, also a show that I very much love and appreciate. So, I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
Netflix announced on Friday that the Emmy-winning actor who will be playing Thomas Malloy in his first live-action TV role since Schitt's Creek. He's a famous author who's going to tutor Maeve as part of her study abroad scheme at an Ivy League college in the U.S. Spoiler alert, Maeve gets on a plane and leaves for America at the end of season 3. You need to just watch it. It's great.
Love this when the spoiler comes after the thing has been discussed.
Yeah, great. Deal with it. Anyway, Dan Levy, who's one of those just out and proud members of the community who is very unapologetic about his sexuality. I'm super excited to see what he brings to this show.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah. Did you kiss and make up with Netflix yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think that they're overall, what's going on with them financially, they're doing poor enough that I would feel okay about getting Netflix back now.
Oh, okay.
But we'll see.
Okay. All right. News the last. You can't make this shit up. We did not know this was going to happen. 4 hours ago, as of this taping, Singapore is going to decriminalize gay sex. Singapore announced today, it will decriminalize sex between men by repealing a colonial-era law, which we're going to talk about in the episode, but will still protect the city-state's, quote, traditional norms and definition of marriage.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said, quote, I believe it is the right thing to do now, and most Singaporeans will accept it. private sexual behavior
Go ahead
between...
and cross that quote off.
Oh, sorry.
No, this is what's going to happen.
Private sexual behavior between consenting adults does not raise any law and order issue. There is no justification to prosecute people for it, nor to make it a crime. This will bring the law into line with current social mores, and I hope provide some relief to gay Singaporeans. But they will still define marriage as between one man and one woman. They will not be adding any sort of education to what children are taught in schools about gay people. And their rather oppressive rules about not showing gay people in a positive light on public media like television will also remain in place. But strictly speaking, butt sex between dudes is illegal in Singapore, at least,
By the books.
By the books, even though it apparently is not well enforced. And I'm going to Singapore in November and was super nervous about it. But yeah, anyway.
And now it's totally fine.
Yeah.
No, that's huge. And yeah, very, very weird when I was like, I was reading about, Singapore and the rights and what the current state is. It was like on August, whatever it is today, 21st, it was now, it was like, wait, hold on. That date sounds familiar because I'm inside of it right now. It's like, it was very weird to be reading like, yeah.
Yeah.
Very timely.
Yeah, very timely.
I feel like we the past several episodes have been randomly timely. Like we've picked things and then news stories have happened after we've picked them that makes us seem better planners than we really are.
I agree. I absolutely.
Kyle, cut that. Don't let them know that we're not that it's just coincidence.
Parting the kimono, you love it.
I don't know why you keep saying that phrase.
That's the news.
That's the news. Speaking of people whose kimono we would love to part, I would like to thank the following Patreon members. Mike Timmons. That's cute. Thank you for that easy name. Or it's probably like Timons or something.
Timons?
Timons and Pumbaa?
From Lion King.
Also thank you to Pup Ramsey. Hey, Pup. Woof, woof. I guess. You sure? They love that, right?
Boy. Sit.
Oh. Chris Sandsburn.
Well,
no burn.
I mean, if they're hot enough, they do.
And Blade Loving. That's not your name. You can never convince me of that, no matter what you do.
Blade Loving.
Blade Loving. Blade with a Y.
Yeah.
Thank you to all our Patreon members. If you want to get episodes a day early, ad-free, get lots of bonus content, you can go to patreon.com/Gayish podcast.
Do it. So, this episode
brought to you by, us, but by way of Patreon.
Yeah. So, once a month, we put out a poll and we let our Gap Bridgers vote on what the topic is going to be based on a handful of topics that we slate. And so I've been traveling. You're probably tired of hearing about it because I sure am. I've been traveling so much for work, but I get I get August and September mostly to not have to travel, at least not for work, which is great. But thought then I would, as a forcing function, put a couple places that I am going to for work later in the year, and you picked Afghanistan. So.
Yeah, boy, maybe I think y'all voted the right way, which is no one voted for Afghanistan. Maybe you don't want to hear us talk about Afghanistan, but Mike's topics were the winner. So yes, today we're talking about Singapore. 53% of you that are the Gap Bridgers voted on this as the topic, so you win. For our tiebreaker poll, that is anyone who's $5 and up who that helps in case there's a tie, which there are few enough people in that there sometimes are, but Singapore and India tied in the tiebreaker. So for our bonus episode this month, we will be talking about India, and the two are connected in ways that will come up. So it's probably fitting that we did that. And man, back to you trouncing me distinctly, and
I rode you hard.
You decimated
worldwide
my ideas.
Busted your ass worldwide open.
Okay.
Great.
So I'll talk to you about the current state of rights in Singapore.
Yeah. Well, first I wanted to ask you.
Oh,
sorry. Did you know anything about Singapore before, doing this episode?
No.
The only thing I knew about Singapore before this episode, I think, was that boy who got caned, who was an American. I think I was in junior high or high school, but he was an American dude who spit gum out or wrote chalk on the sidewalk. I forget what the fuck he did, but they're hardcore about shit, and he was convicted and sentenced to a public caning, And between that and the caning, America flipped the fuck out of like, what do you mean you're going to publicly beat an American citizen? That very much that was my idea of Singapore.
Do you know that for sure happened? Like, did you actually? I'm just saying, like, things that we vaguely remember and hear about countries could, like, very much either be misconstrued by our memory, and like that's not necessarily what we want to put out there. It was like who they are.
Michael P. Fay was his name, and he was an American who was sentenced to 6 strokes of the cane in Singapore in 1994. It wasn't for just gum. It was for theft of road signs and vandalizing 18 cars over a 10-day period in September of 1993. It caused a temporary strain in relations between Singapore and the United States. He pled guilty, but later claimed that he was advised that such a plea would preclude caning and that his confession was false. He never vandalized any cars, and that the only crime he committed was stealing road signs. His cane strokes was reduced from 6 to 4 after the United States requested leniency.
Jesus.
He was caned on the 5th of May, 1994.
That's such a wow. That's wild.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I knew about it, and I want to know if he's hot.
The ultimate question.
He's barely older than me. He was born in 1975, and so I in 94 I was in high school. So it stuck out to me, I guess, because like close enough in age, and he being a minor, I'm pretty sure I really identified with him. I was like,
and the last name is Faye. You were Faye.
Faye.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the current rights.
Do it.
That has nothing to do with caning. And because it's Singapore, to celebrate Singapore, I'm going to do it all by song.
Oh.
In 2022. No, that's a lie. I'm going to talk about it. So
I'm a little bit hungover and very tired, and I did not see that pun coming.
I do really well with the hungover and tired audience. If you don't like this podcast, drink last night.
Yeah.
And I do really, you'll love it way better. Okay.
Talk poor. I'm going to need a minute. Go ahead.
That was enough. Okay. So the LGBT rights that it's interesting. Every country kind of has its thing. What is the thing, the legal thing that is the shitty thing against LGBT people that we are fighting against? And
sure.
In Singapore, it is Section 377A of the Penal Code that says that same-sex sexual activity between men is illegal, even if it's consensual, even if it's in private. This law is not enforced.
Okay.
So that's also one of those, like, who knows what people can use in the future. Like, that's not good enough for any country, and often an excuse that is used for leaving shit on the books and not doing anything about it.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think regardless of context, but it's not really enforced. That does not make me feel safer.
No.
Right?
And even let's pretend that that's true and never is enforced. That sitting there reminds people that being gay is bad. It's both being gay is bad, and the only thing about us is sex. That's the thing that's criminalized. You criminalize gay people by criminalizing sex. So gay means sex, and it's bad. Like those things, that message you can't get away from if it's still sitting there.
Yep.
So, as you mentioned, that's not the case anymore as of today, as of recording.
One thing I don't know about Singapore law, though, is how quickly it changes, right? Like, just because you say it's going away, that doesn't mean that it's the law of the land now.
Yeah.
There's probably some kind of rollout process, or I don't know.
And whenever we see these regardless of the country, it's also like, it is scheduled to be removed by 2027 or something, because they need to, like cross out a word and change the word to another thing on a document. And that takes, I don't know, whatever. So we don't know the actual timing. Also, you mentioned a lot of things that are still in the Constitution. They are putting it, the word that was used when I was reading about it is enshrined in the Constitution, is the legal definition of marriages between a man and a woman. This is to help. This is part of this compromise with the religious side to make sure that man and woman is still the focus. That like they very much said, like, that is the focus, that is that is what a family is, that's what it's built on. So they're still really pushing hard that marriage as a man and woman, that's the familial unit.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and you mentioned a bunch of other things that I'll tell you more about, other things that are shitty for LGBT people and difficult. But in a 2022 Ipsos survey, they found that 44% of Singapore residents support retaining 377A. So basically 44% are homophobic.
Yeah.
Which it's always... That is under 50%. So that
Retaining is different than enforcing, right? They're like, don't change it, but that doesn't speak to whether they want it enforced, unless that's something you're going to talk about.
It is not.
Okay,
That is the only number I have.
Okay, great. You love it when I ask questions about your numbers.
Well, it's no. That's a good point, and you're correct.
Great.
That doesn't tell us.
Say that more.
Do you think I want to encourage this behavior? I wish you would ask. Somebody's asked me questions about stuff I have written down, and I like that better. So just do better at predicting.
Sure.
Predictive text me better.
Okay. I'm going to wear a big red hat with a yellow feather on it, call myself Karnak, and hold an envelope to my head, and it'll be whatever's in your notes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not old enough for that. Okay, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't have that on my paper anywhere. Okay, so it's always, I say this every time, it says only 44% support retaining this homophobic policy. That, great, a majority then are the opposite, so that's cool, but like, it's always reported in this way that I'm like, fucking more than 4 out of 10 people are homophobic.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't, if you're close to 50-50, I don't feel great about that.
Yeah.
But that's within something happening and the numbers swinging back the other way.
Well, and unless you have the numbers there, it could also be that only 33% want it to be removed, and then like 30% are like...
Don't give a shit.
Don't know or undecided, right?
Yeah. I'm just never as optimistic as like when these kinds of numbers are reported.
When it comes to gay shit, I'd say that is justified. Historically
That's true.
accurate.
Yeah. There's a reason for that. Yeah. So there has been efforts. The fact that this is being repealed, there have been efforts. There are parties that it's interesting looking at other countries, and I think that what we have gone through in the U.S. I only mention the U.S. because that's my only perspective that I can like compare to what, the thing that is whoever's in charge, the things they say, the ruling party says, the things that they do in their actual actions. Like, we judge so much based on that. But, when I think about the U.S., that meant Donald Trump, that meant Republicans, that meant a bunch. If that's all you looked at, it would be very easy to write off like all the complexities within the country. So we're obviously not going to get them all perfect, but I at least want to mention there are groups that have been pushing to remove Section 377 in 2007. The Singapore Democratic Party called for its repeal.
Singaporean Democrats can't get anything done either, apparently.
Oh, samesies, girl. We got you. In September 2018, India repealed their Section 377, which maybe we'll talk more about on the Patreon bonus episode called India. But that helped inspire people to start a petition to remove the Singaporean version. There were 3 lawsuits from then to 2020, but they were all dismissed in 2020 in a closed door judgment by Justice C. Ki-un. And one of them was like, Singaporean DJ, this person filed a lawsuit. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. There's a popular gay DJ that has also apparently did some legal shit.
Oh, like, couldn't he have been a hairdresser or like a drag queen? That would have been even better. But, so DJs, that's gay adjacent.
Yeah. Depends on where you DJ, I think. So there have been people pushing for this for some time, and it's finally come to fruition. But other current laws, this gets into some of the elements that you mentioned are staying in place. Section 354 of the Penal Code talks about outrage of modesty is how it was referred. So this is one of those things in public. If something causes or has the potential to cause outrage, it remind me actually a lot of Russia, like of kind of vague, if this potentially could harm, or you
Yeah.
do something in public. Like that's, I don't know. There's seems to be a lot of open for interpretation that allows them to enforce, like if you do something gay, kind of.
I just can't. Every time I hear penile code and like penis code, and it's because I'm a toddler, Kyle.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, that was okay. I thought you had something funny.
No.
Okay.
No.
Do you want to like reflect on maybe coming up with a joke there? Or you just wanted to point it out? Okay. I'll edit one in later.
Great.
Okay. Section 294. This is a commission of an obscene act in public that is an annoyance of others can be penalized. This is, they talked about there could be like police sometimes use entrapment to like signal someone to like have sex or encourage sexual activity, and then they like get charged with this section 294. There is section 19 prohibiting solicitation and sex work. And then just some of the other rights, kind of state of rights. So adoption in general, children that are born outside of wedlock, which like we just said, constitutionally, it will be a man and a woman. Children born outside of wedlock are not eligible for, they're considered illegitimate, not eligible for social benefits unless the child is adopted, which unfortunately is not super possible. In December 2018, there was a rare case where a gay Singaporean won the right to adopt a child he had fathered in the U.S. through a surrogate. But so that was one case that it happened, but that is very rare. And in January 2019, in response to that happening, the then Minister for Social and Family Development said he wanted to strengthen Singaporeans' adoption laws to prevent same-sex adoption cases.
Sure.
So, adoption continues to be a challenge for same-sex couples. Discrimination protection. There are no laws preventing discrimination in housing or in the workplace. There is a law, or the Maintenance of Religious Harmony Act was amended in 2019 that added in the protection of the LGBT community from religiously motivated violence. So while there is no broader like discrimination protection, at least from religiously motivated violence, there's protection in this Maintenance of Religious Harmony Act.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Because all bigots scream, "I love Jesus."
I love Jesus, and then they fuck you up. Like, yeah. And that's like, that's such a, yeah.
How do you prove that, right?
How do you prove that? Yeah. It included a quote from this: the target group may be made up of atheists, individuals from a specific racial community who share a similar sexual orientation or have certain nationality or descent, like foreign workers or new citizens. So it covered many. The amendment to this covered many people, including people, gay people. Did not see anything about gender in that description. So speaking of gender, it's interesting. Singapore recognizes trans people in gender confirmation surgeries. So it's been legal since 1973. So they have a long history of like, but it was unclear to me whether that was accidental. You know, a lot of like, because we ban like butt sex, it's often gay men that are banned, and people kind of forget lesbians exist. And that's, you know, there are different challenges that come with each group. With the trans people, it was unclear to me whether that was legal just by accident or people forget that trans people exist, or if it did sound like someone who had like set up and is an activist had set up a home for trans people said, quote, "Very often we are invisible yet visible at the same time." There's no data on how many trans people even exist in Singapore. So that seemed to be the call for the first step, to just understand, like without even understanding what's like, let's get some kind of starting point to build from there. So that's the kind of invisible, but there's certain, they have rights that I would not expect given the context of all this other LGBT shittiness. So like it's an interesting state. For the military, they are subject to Category 302, a medical code that classifies people who are, I will quote what they said, quote, "homosexual, transvestites, pedophiles, etc."
Sure. Yeah.
Those all belong.
Those all belong together in the same list.
Yeah.
You fucking dickbags.
Just, in case anyone needs this reminder, unless someone uses this name for themselves, don't use the word transvestite. You're probably looking for the word transgender. There are people who do identify as such, but that only do that unless you really clearly hear them call themselves that.
Yeah.
Anyway, some of this is based on old, outdated, like the DSM manuals that put gay, trans as disorders. That has since been updated, but that is still being used as a basis for some of this discrimination. So you can be gay, but it limits your ability to get some kinds of like certain ranks, like you can't move up, or certain security clearances. So you are very much limited in the military.
Yep.
Conversion therapy, the government has supported it as recently as 2006. There was in 2020, the Minister of Health made a statement that like in the description was like, they are against it because of this statement. And the statement like to me came across kind of vague. So maybe there's more stuff elsewhere that I didn't find, but like the statement was like, we recommend that all doctors practice things that are in line with the recommendations of whatever. Like it was not like we firmly stand against conversion therapy. It was like followed best practices for treatment of. So it sounded like they are generally against it, but don't want to like put their foot too like far down.
Yeah.
On the.
Yeah. It's interesting because we'll talk a little bit about this, but Singapore is so crazy diverse when it comes to religion. There's probably it's probably difficult to navigate this and not piss off somebody real bad.
Well, we've already seen like multiple cases where they're trying to appease both LGBT rights and religious groups. Like, we'll get to the last thing I found a quote in queerintheworld.com that I thought was important and fitting. It said, for LGBT people, quote, there is always a sense of a hammer waiting to fall.
Ooh.
And while this announcement of, the repeal of Section 377, while that's useful, I don't think that I would doubt, given everything else that is included and not being repealed and still, like, I doubt that it's a step in the right direction, but I doubt that changes this sense of, like, it's just, it must be just so ominous and so, like, all of this stuff hanging over your head, and it's, like, either, partially enforced or not enforced, or they tentatively support it, or, like, God, that being in that vague state, that I don't know, that must do a big mind fuck on your mental health.
Well, and the whole the whole thing of like not well enforced or not enforced doesn't make you feel good.
No,
like
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Because like tomorrow you might.
Yeah,
right? Like,
Like, who knows what kind of like, oh, technically, like we can do this. Like, so many places can use what's on the book against you, and you got to remove that shit so they can't do that.
Yeah. Oh God. It's Jesus.
Well, that's the current state. How did we get there, Mike?
How did we get there? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the history of Singapore. Oh God.
Going to sit back and enjoy my Singapore history lesson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so the takeaway is exactly right. Are you okay?
Oh, yeah, I just burped. That's fine.
Do you feel relieved?
No, I have to pee. Okay. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Then I will.
Okay, great.
Answer will be yes. Okay.
I mean, do you want me to start talking while you're gone? Well, while Kyle's peeing, Singaporean history. Oh man, I'll wait. And that's how Singapore got so anti-gay.
Oh, thank fucking God. Okay. No, I want to hear this.
Okay. So Singapore history, like I was very, very surprised by just how gay Singapore history is. And you can really bust it up into like three big chunks of time. It's before the white people fucked everything up, and then from white people up to Japan, and then post Japan. Like those are the big eras,
okay. Right?
So before the British showed up in 1819, there are no like written records of same-sex love in the pre-colonial period, but anthropologists like Michael Pellets talks about the fact that between the 15th and 18th centuries, all of Southeast Asia, including Singapore, was characterized by gender fluidity, egalitarianism, considerable female autonomy, like women could own property and vote, and like they were a lot more what we would call progressive about gender and sexuality issues. And there's all over this part of the world in their like history, there's traditions of cross-dressing, other forms of gender transgressive behavior, and they have a whole bunch of like rituals and poems and stuff that talks about sexuality and same-sex sexuality. So
God, I love this. I love this shit when something is just like super gay and queer and like gender fucked, and it just is a reminder, like, God, if you think this is new, you've never looked at any other culture, any other time period.
Yep.
Even in the U.S., we can look back, like, take us back 100 years and things are much different. Like, look at other cultures, look at other people. Like, you know goddamn jack shit, and you're forming your opinion based on your little tiny measly brain that thinks you can look around for 2 seconds and know things. Like, you're just fucking idiot asshole, and you need to die.
Yeah. Kyle just took over the mic rant.
Sorry.
It was amazing.
You can anyway. I love hearing about. Okay, I'm excited.
So there's a poem called the Hikayat Panji Semarang, which it translates as the Tale of Prince Semarang. It was written in the 14th century, and it tells of the adventures of a sexually fluid hero, Panji Semarang. It is it's a beloved poem, and it talks about this person who. If I remember right, I closed the tab. If I remember right, is like a Milan kind of a thing, like gender bends in order to like get into military service, and then ends up like I don't know. It's a sexually fluid hero is how it's described. There's also in the region the Serat Senthini, which is it was written in 1814, and it's like the Singapore version of the Kama Sutra. Which, if you don't know what the Kama Sutra is, it's a sex manual that it comes from India. We will definitely talk about it in the India episode. Ooh. But it's a stylized sex manual. But the Singapore version has detailed descriptions of sodomy, fellatio, mutual masturbation, transvesticism, which is, I know that's a problematic word, but I'm just reading what the thing says here. But it shows that homosexuality was unproblematic, because it's like, just it's in the manual. It's in the sex book. Like go ahead and do all the things. Here's how. Yeah. Here's a nice picture for you.
And it sounds like not just unproblematic. It sounds like encouraged. Mm-hmm. Could even, like, if it's in the manual of how to do sex good, like, not just that it wasn't bad, it sounds like it was okay and supported.
Yep. And like a lot of cultures, we've talked about this before, they did have this requirement that you mate and have children. So a lot of these alternative sexualities and gender identities were tolerated and supported and maybe even encouraged, but as long as that included but also get your shit together and get married and have kids. That's an inescapable duty that you have. Yeah.
Another funny word is duty.
Duty.
Because we're children.
Duty.
I didn't have a joke about it, but I guess we didn't need that to just point out funny words.
Yeah, maybe we could do, like, someday we'll do a supercut of all the jokes we didn't make.
That'll just be our show.
Right.
That'll just be playing our show and be like, look, there were so many opportunities for jokes.
Speaking of what we were just talking about,
duty jokes.
Yeah, no, the gay shit happening, tolerated way. Quote, there was tolerance towards men who indulged in surreptitious homosexual activity, as evidenced by the absence of any vocal or physical violence against such people. So, like, there's no history there of, like, we rounded all the faggots up and caned them, or whatever. Yep. It just, that is absent from history. And so this author is making the argument that shows you that it was tolerated, at the very least tolerated, if not.
Yeah, they would write down something about, like, this fag was all faggy and we defagged him through our defagulator.
Yep. And there are no examples of people banding together to form a movement, because they weren't being overtly oppressed to need to do that.
This part does seem like it is new these days. It seems like when we look at history, a lot of it is either tolerated or just it might be just everyone kind of knows it happens and just doesn't do anything about it, and maybe there's no collective group or identity, like they don't have all these different identities, just kind of something that was part of it. The active push for encouraging, supporting, like making it very publicly known and supported, that more a modern invention? Or is it just there are other cultures, and again, like now I'm doing the thing, there are other cultures where, you know, various gender identities are actively like held in high regard. Like the one that I know that I'm not considering it, Fafanin, is there are cultures that support gender identities that are outside of the binary, and so I don't know but enough times or at least I've heard of, you know, it was just kind of tolerated or underground or we didn't do anything about it, and now it's actively being pushed, you know, named and pushed for and supported more publicly.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but in this region of the world that is Singapore, there's the Bisu tradition, which is just one of the peoples in the area in Indonesia. But anyway, they when the white people came to that part of the world to colonize, that was one thing that they really were like freaked out about, is the fact that in the Bisu tradition, those people had a fifth gender.
Fuck yeah.
And so they, at least as far back as the 13th century, the Bisu people had male men, oroane, female women, makunrai, male women, kalabai, and female men, kalalai. And then they had a fifth gender that was as non-binary people. The fifth gender was non-binary people. This white dude who's an asshole wrote, quote, "Your lordship will know that the priests of these kings are generally called bisus. They grow no hair on their beards, dress in a womanly fashion, and grow their hair long and braided. They imitate women's speech because they adopt all of the female gestures and inclinations. They marry and are received, according to the custom of the land, with other common men. And they live indoors, uniting carnally in their secret places with the men whom they have for husbands." So this fifth non-binary gender, like, get married, hang out, it's fine.
I mean, my fave, live indoors. God, that's my dream. Right. You know, just always exist indoors. I get it. Outside, the worst.
Yeah.
Like and this is something when people are like, there are two genders or two sexes or whatever dumb shit people say. It's like, you don't understand that we as humans categorize shit based on just looking at it and as best we can, and other people have looked at it and categorized them in different ways. Like, just because we as a society or white people clearly are trying to enforce this kind of idea, it's not just inherent in nature. It's just how we've decided to categorize shit ourselves. Like,
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. We love our boxes, and they're stupid. There was the Dutch did a bunch of colonizing, and the physician Julius Jacobs observed these dance performances by young boys dressed up like women. This is going to be really problematic, but I kind of like the joke that he makes. Anyway, he says, quote, "One knows that they are boys, and it is sickening to see men from all strata of society proffering their kepangs," which that's coins, "to have the chance to dance with these children, sometimes in the queerest postures. One is still more revolted to discover that these children, sometimes after exercising for hours in a perpendicular position, are compelled, utterly exhausted though they may be, to carry out horizontal maneuvers with the highest bidders, after being fondled by this man and kissed by that." So he's like you make them dance, and then you make them lay on their back.
Oh God!
Like horizontal and perpendicular position and horizontal maneuvers. I think that's an interesting way a euphemistic way to put it. But so when white people showed up to the region, they were mortified, and they brought with them all of their sort of Victorian ideas about sex and the shamefulness of it, and particularly their anti-sodomy views.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, though, I feel like that has a combination of gender sexual orientation, and also like kids, like there's a weird, like, we just complained about that being the concept in the military thing that I read that had those things listed, but here we actually do see a combination of all those things. So like that kind of it's hard to, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to like look back at something and decide what was acceptable and. I don't know.
It's also my understanding that, like, although he said children several times, and that was to emphasize it and make it seem so super horrific, it was more akin to the Greek system of pederastic relationship, right?
Okay.
Like they were probably teenagers, which I understand that that's problematic, but like we considered people to be adult and able to consent way earlier age back in time.
Yeah. And also, like, this is very much through the lens of this person who clearly wanted to demonize. So, like, I guess I should not take that as an accurate description of what actually was happening.
Yep. There are also the same part of the world in Papua New Guinea. They had ritualized homosexuality. This practice required young men to perform oral sex on elder males as part of their rite of passage into manhood. They believed that semen was the source of life and the essence of masculinity, important for boys to become real men.
God, I miss these traditions. You saw that there was a while ago. You introduced me to this concept of like whoever lost in battle had to like fucking blow the winners, and I was like, God, I wish we had these customs.
Yeah.
Oh, I lost.
Right.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So there's I can go on and on and on. There are all of these cultures that contributed to what is now Singaporean society. And Singapore just had this queer thing after queer thing after queer thing. At least one monarch pre-colonialism was openly homosexual. Captain Alexander Hamilton, who was an English sailor.
I'm sorry. Alexander Hamilton?
I know. I heard it when I said it.
Okay.
But not of Hamilton fame.
Okay.
Lin-Manuel Miranda has nothing to do with this one. But he was an English sailor who visited in 1695, and he wrote about the behavior of Sultan Mahmud Shah II. And he said, quote, "The king was a youth of 20 years of age, and being viciously inclined, was so corrupted by adulation and flagitious company that he became intolerable. He was a great sodomite, and had taken many of his orang kaya, or nobles' sons, by force into his palace for that abominable service. A Moorish merchant who was a freighter on board my ship had a handsome boy to his son, whom the king saw one day and would needs have him for a catamite. He threatened the father that if he did not send him with goodwill, he would have him by force. The poor man had taken a house close by our ship and immediately came with his son on board, imploring my protection, which I promised him. He continued his insupportable tyranny and brutality for a year or two after I was gone, and his mother, to try if he could be broke off that unnatural custom of converse with males, persuaded a beautiful young woman to visit him when he was in bed, which she did, and allured him with her embraces, but he was so far from being pleased with her conversation that he called back his black guard and made them break both her arms for offering to embrace his royal person. She cried and said it was by his mother's orders that she came, but that was no excuse. But anyway.
Okay, I'm glad we did for the last one, like reminding me, like, it's coming from that person's perspective, which is like the idea of, oh no, he took this person by force. Like, that's an argument. Like, when people see two gay couples, like, clearly the bottom is being forced by the top, like, or maybe the opposite. The more femme one is forcing the other one into. So like, remembering that, no, I don't like any relationships that are by force, but also what did this person actually see and assume when describing it? And
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you don't know. You don't know what was true. You also don't know what was going on for the people involved necessarily. Like, it might have been, oh no, don't force me, Daddy. Yeah. Right? Like, you don't. Okay, so the British take over Singapore in 1819, and they bring with them their colonial bullshit. So the Straits settlements,
offensive.
which that's just what it's called.
Today we would call it the cishet settlements.
So Singapore was part of that reorganization and colonialization, and the British authorities just copy pasted the Indian Penal Code And
that's why it's the same number.
which is why it's the same number.
377.
Yep, exactly right. So it came into effect in Singapore, Penang, and Malacca on September 16th, 1872, and the Penal Code included Section 377, as do all of those other places, or are in various stages of getting rid of it. Yeah. But that criminalized, quote, carnal intercourse against the order of nature. And the courts later determined that, at least in Singapore, that meant any penetrative sex which did not have the potential of procreation. Mm. So it, at least initially, included not only homosexual sex, but also oral and anal sex between heterosexual couples.
And that, I mean, sorry, old ladies. Like, that's like... No sex.
No sex.
Too old for that. You can't make a baby out of that.
Yep. No.
That sucks.
Right. Yep. You gotta take it in the vagina only.
Right, but
for having babies
while you are not active, while you are it's possible for you to have periods.
Right. Yep.
I'm gonna run on a platform of old ladies get fucked. Like that's what I want.
That's catchy. I think that's good marketing. go for it. Yeah. So the white people fucked it all up is really.
It's interesting. Like you talking about colonialization. There's more complexities and the beliefs and whatever they brought over. But like you just said, like they directly copied this thing, put it like I don't know. I don't see anything like it's so directly. Here's precisely the thing they did that made that. Like it's so weird how easily you can trace it directly to them and doing that thing.
Yep, absolutely.
It's wild.
That's 100% what happened. So before the British came to rule, the 1826 population figures said that the ratio of men to women was 17-1 among the Chinese part of the population. There were also Malaysians, and they were more evenly distributed, but it was still slightly more male than female in the Malaysian population. But basically, it was like 15-1 dudes to chicks in the early times. So by the time the British took over and colonized it, there were a lot of sex workers, and a lot of those sex workers were boys and men, and the British had to decide sort of whether to look away or not. The idea was like, we have a too many dudes problem, and they're gonna fuck. So do we let them do that or not? And there was different times of like rounding them up and getting rid of them or prosecuting them. But there were also some periods of time there where they were more or less just allowed to operate as sex workers. The Hainan boys, which that's a Chinese, it's an island at the southernmost part of China called Hainan, and apparently they were the ones that were most sought after. They were supposed to have, quote, fair skins and pleasant faces, which are highly valued in the Chinese concept of beauty. And apparently in Hainan culture, the men stay at home to do the cooking while the women work in the fields. So these became like live-in, doing all kinds of help. The records do not mention if these boys cross-dressed. They may have worked as transgender sex workers, or they might have been outwardly presenting male, or both. But this makes it really difficult to differentiate the history of sex workers in Singapore, and so it gets kind of messy.
Why the focus on the sex worker portion of that?
Well, the whole thing is that before colonial rule, there was a more or less permissive attitude towards homosexuality, and that included sex work. Like, hey, Chinese dudes living in Singapore, if you need to get your rocks off, there are no ladies here. Go ahead and bang these dudes, and it's culturally accepted, more or less legal. Then the British come and no, we can't have that. But then also, can we kind of let it happen? Right?
But so you like, okay, gay, bad, but you still have this overabundance of men. So like, men make laws based on what's best for them. So allowing some dudes to still have an avenue for sex is like more important than like all other things.
But then just like talking about enforcing things, it was not well enforced, right? It was illegal to be a sex worker, especially a gay sex worker, but it was not well enforced because of these cultural attitudes that they had to sort of figure out while balancing a huge ratio of men to women, quote unquote, problem. Yeah.
Do you know why there's that huge imbalance in men to women?
Do I know?
I just had to ask you one question you don't know the answer to get back at you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem.
But
it's worse. Like because I have like physical papers, the answer will not generate itself on my pages. But with you, then it's like quiet time while you scroll through things, and that's not fun for anyone. So you should just say no and move on, or I guess I could cut all this, and then you could pretend like you had the answer right there.
They were brought in as workers.
Okay.
Yeah, the British were importing large numbers of workers, and there were more men than women in that breakdown. Yeah, and then shit's fucked up that way until the Japanese take over, and I'll talk about that later. I don't know.
Okay.
Or we can talk about it now. I've been talking for a while. Do you want to say some things?
Maybe I'll talk about some Gata.
Okay, let's talk about some Gata.
So
I have an idea.
Okay.
Let's talk about the history from Japan forward as our Patreon.
Okay.
So to wrap up the history part, I'll just fast forward through the fact that when the Japanese took over Singapore in World War II, then it was more or less okay to be gay again, sort of. Like Singapore fell to the Japanese Imperial Army in February of 1942. And they immediately just like got rid of the British legal system and established their own. And gay sex was not illegal under Japanese law. So all of a sudden, Singapore became this like, go ahead and bang, it's fine. That's an oversimplification because they still did have laws in place, including Section 377, that prevented it, but there was zero enforcement of it during this period of time. And
that explains it's in the books but not enforced is the like, well, British put it in there and then Japanese, they were like, but we don't care.
Right, exactly. What they did care about was all of the sex work that I was talking about. They cracked down on that. They had this thing called the suk ching, which means, quote, a purge through cleansing. And they had a kakyoshukuse, which is the purging of the Chinese. So that part's real bad. But at least you could have the butt sex during that time.
I mean,
yeah. But then when the Japanese lost the war in 1945, the British legal system was reinstated and 377 came back. And it's been illegal ever since. And you talked about like the current state. But yeah, there was like, despite all the horrible shit that was going on that Japan was behind during World War II, the sodomites loved being under Japanese rule. And there was a period of about 3 years there where like everybody was doing the butt sex.
Yeah. I'm sure because of the laws, people never had butt sex, and then they just started. Finally, butts were open left and right.
Yep. And we can talk some more about that in the Patreon segment.
I'm going to talk about Gata. There are some heavy mental health issues discussed here, so if you would like to skip ahead maybe 10 minutes or so, and then you don't have to hear that because it'll be a lot. But the study that I'm going to read you is called Experienced Homophobia and Suicide Among Young Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Men in Singapore, exploring the mediating role of depression, severity, self-esteem, and outness in the Pink Carpet Y cohort study. And this is by Raynar Cajun Tan, Timothy Kin Ying Lo, Daniel Lee, Alvin Tan, Adrian Tyler, Calvin Tan, Hornos Sumita Banerjee, Alex R. Cook, and me, Leanne Wong. Sorry to everyone, just everyone across the land. This is published in 2021.
Okay.
So before this study, this study itself says that there's nothing that explored the mental health among LGBT people in Singapore. So that this is the kind of shit that's like, whoever did this study, I told you who did this study, like that's good shit. Like to start to research the mental health of LGBT people, that's huge and monumental and very needed in any group to understand what are the challenges and why does it fucking suck that some of these laws, like, we talk about the law being there, even if it's not enforced, is bad. And it shows up in some of these numbers as well as other places, but like the mental health, if there's a law that you know of that is on the books that says it's bad, that's one of the many ways you know that being gay is bad.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, for this sample, it was 570 young GBTQ, because it's just men. So sorry, Els. Ages 18 to 25 who were HIV negative or unsure of their HIV status.
Okay.
If I had to guess, presumably, if you were HIV positive, that has a distinct and separate effect on your mental health. So maybe that's worthy of a separate study, or that's best I could guess. But
that seems reasonable. That's probably it.
So this is young HIV negative or unsure of their status men.
People who are sad because they're gay, not because they have HIV.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Yeah, and it's kind of this group, 59% had considered suicide.
Mm.
That's
yeah.
And 14% had attempted suicide.
Damn.
They saw that experienced homophobia, so the people that the homophobia they experienced and the severity of their depression were positively associated with history of suicidal ideation. So, of course, the severity of your depression is going to play into this, but also the homophobia they've experienced associated with suicidal ideation. And for like association with the history of suicide attempts, they found a positive association between, again, depression severity and outness. So
interesting
that it sucks, and it makes sense that if you are out in a place that is not supportive of you, or not completely supportive, or still has homophobia, 44%, only 44% of people are homophobic. So sweet.
Yeah. If
you're out, you may experience even more challenges as a result of that.
Boy, it sure makes it gets better sound dumb. Right, like at least in that country, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard, even since it gets better, there have been critiques of it. I think part of the thing is sometimes that's the best option, and it sucks, and it doesn't change how it feels now. But sometimes it gets better. Like, you just have to get through this terrible time and find another option. Like, sometimes, unfortunately, that is the best that you can do.
Yep.
And it sucks that you have to rely on just what is the least bad option to, and sometimes it is get through this.
Yeah.
And people have gotten through what these young people are experiencing in Singapore. And in Singapore, people have gotten through that and can continue to get through that. And so if that's what you have to hold on to get through, like, fucking do it, because you can, and it sucks, and you will, and it still sucks. Like,
yeah.
And I just looked up, because just that seemed to be in the ballpark of what we've seen in the U.S. I just looked up, at least for the Trevor Project, 45% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide. So they're looking at different groups, different genders, or different countries, all that shit. But like, it is still in that same. So what I saw was it is in line with, or numbers are, we have very generally about, similar numbers of mental health as a major issue.
Yep.
So that, I don't know. Yeah, that sucks. Glad we have that data. Glad we know that information, and hopefully they'll continue making progress for the lives and safety and health of queer people in Singapore.
Yeah. Gosh, it seems like maybe things are shifting, right? Like this overturning that law seems hopeful.
And the stuff that led up to it, there were lawsuits. Even though like stuff was struck down, there are lawsuits. There are parties that are pushing for it. So, hopefully it keeps going.
Yeah.
Okay, but I do want to talk about this on the main episode then, because we've talked about like hard, difficult, shitty things. I want to talk about something fun and positive.
Great. Fun and positive.
This is the section where we're fun and positive. Not HIV, but just happiness. Okay. That'll be fun to cut later. Okay, Pink Dot.
Pink Dot.
It is did you come across this when you were researching?
Yes.
Okay, what is it, Mike?
Pink Dot is the closest thing that they have to Pride, really, but it's a demonstration of queer solidarity by getting everybody together and having them wear pink and make a giant dot.
Yes. And it seemed, I mean, like, it seemed very, there are, it's an annual thing. There seemed to be like performances and demonstrations and protests, and there are ambassadors, popular, famous LGBT people that are ambassadors that, can represent this, but seems very akin to Pride. Again, just relating it to what we can kind of hold on to and grab. But it's their own event thing that they put together starting in 2009. It is pink because the colors when you mix red and white, which is the colors of their flag, which that's cute.
Yeah.
It is.
I also heard something about like it challenges masculine stereotypes.
Oh,
because pink is a feminine color, and that's so much of it is based on patriarchy. That's a fuck you to that.
Yeah, anyway, love that.
Yeah.
It takes place on a Saturday during the months of May, June, or July.
Great.
So just ask your local gay when it is.
Check your local listings.
Yeah. They have a mascot called Pinky.
Oh no!
I haven't looked up the mascot, but it's of Pinky and the Brain fame, maybe.
Oh my god!
I don't know. Are you looking it up?
I need to see this thing.
I should have. Yeah.
Adorable.
It's like a very literal. Like, it is a pink dot that it has a smiley face on it. It's super cute. Yeah. I want it to be my mascot.
And little T-Rex arms.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Mike from Monsters, Inc. if it was just like a little pink bubble.
Yep.
That's cute. Okay. And this is big enough that places around the world started modeling their LGBT event after Pink Dot. So if you see like Pink Dot SG, that's Pink Dot Singapore, because there were other events. So I just looked at, there's this big timeline of...
But they're the OG, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah. So that's awesome that what they did was big enough that other places started modeling an event after them and grew bigger and bigger. So that's really cool. There are some notable things that I just personally looked at in the timeline of events, so I'll just call out some cool things that have happened since it started. Started in 2009. It was Singapore's first public open-air pro-LGBT event. At the time, it had the record for greatest turnout for a gathering at the Speaker's Corner in Hung Lim Park since the venue was open. And this is a major milestone in Singapore's LGBT community. So this is a defining event in LGBT rights for Singapore.
This is super awesome.
Huge. In 2011, Google started sponsoring it.
Wow.
International Pink Dots were held on the same day. And here are just some of the places they were held in: Anchorage, Alaska.
Great.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, good work.
Yeah, Sarah Palin loved it.
I can see Russia from my house.
We can see Singapore from our house. Also celebrated in, I'll just say Taiwan, in a city in Taiwan, and in London. So that started growing from there. 2013, there was a record turnout of 21,000 people. That is, couch this in the organizers claimed that number. As long as that number is, I would tend to believe them. I could guess other places would underreport or try to
Sure.
So I would believe that. As long as that's true, that is the largest civil society gathering in the country. In 2015, it got increased focus from both pro and anti-LGBT groups.
Sure.
So that makes sense that it grows to a size where then you start to get both lots that's useful for promotion, publicity, and then also you attract more of the haters.
Yep.
In 2019, it was
1 star.
1 star, terrible. No, 4 stars, terrible. 1 star, you're stupid and stop talking stupid. God, did you just equate us to the monumental Pink Dot celebrations?
We're the same.
Okay, great.
We're the same.
Cool.
Our listeners are the same.
Yep. In 2019, this event was attended by the brother of the Prime Minister and his wife and their second son, Lee Huan Wu, and Lee's husband, Heng Yuri.
Yay.
Yuri. Sorry. In 2020, they had to go virtual because of COVID, but they...
So that's the Prime Minister's nephew. The Prime Minister's nephew is gay. Married.
You know what? If that's how the dotted lines work out,
Great.
then yeah.
That pink dotted line.
The pink dotted line to the gay
Great.
of the family.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 2020, although it was virtual, petitions by religious groups started on change.org calling for restrictions on the event. Those didn't work. And 2022, the year of current this one.
Now-ish.
The year, it's roughly 2022. Historians haven't confirmed, but event was back in person.
Awesome.
So we talked about some rough shit, some history shit, and there's some great things that not only have Singapore has not only affected LGBT. This event has not only affected LGBT Singaporeans, but has grown beyond that to help support worldwide efforts to support gay rights.
Yeah. I have this new thing that I really like. It's equaldex.com/equality-index. And they take every country in the world and they give it 2 scores. One is about the public attitudes of that place, and the other one is about the law and how permissive it is. Yeah. Singapore, out of 198 countries, comes in at 143.
On both combined, or
that's their combined score.
Oh,
yeah. So
boy.
on their legal score was a 32, and their public opinion score was a 34.
Wait.
So now.
Wait, 32 out of 1,000 whatever countries?
No. So they rated on a scale of 1 to 100.
Oh, okay, got it. They were ranked very low out of the total number of countries, and their score out of 100 on both were like 30-something.
Correct.
Got it. Okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah. Now, if this penal code change actually sticks, then I'm certain that their legal number will get better, and they'll hop up this list. But until then, Singapore, get your shit together.
That is a good. That's a useful like comparison of, it's hard to gauge and know what's typical, especially when you're looking at a different country and we don't know all the history and context. So it's not ranked very well in the overall list of countries.
The United States is number 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
We did good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ish. Number 1 is Iceland.
Oh, Iceland.
Followed by Canada. Okay.
That's Singapore.
We said so many Singapore things.
We said a lot of Singaporean things.
Should we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break.
I can tell you what a Singapore slang is.
Is that a real thing?
Yes. Okay, let's take a break.
This is the part where Mike and Kyle take a break.
You ready?
I'm ready.
So are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest.
We're going to do our Gayest and Straightest. But first, I told you it was coming. It's time for the local gay bar review.
Oh,
yeah. So I've been traveling a fuck ton for work and a little bit for personal, and I said that I would go to at least one gay bar in all of these places and do a quick review about it. So this time, it's from a few weeks ago, but I'm going to talk about Zum Schweig, which is a gay bar in Frankfurt, Germany that I went to. You go in and it's a vaguely nautical theme. There's fish on the wall. There's videos of fish tanks on TV screens and nets overhead with disco ball bait. It's like, so you feel like you're underwater is the idea. Yeah. And it was a Tuesday night, which is a weird night to go out no matter what country you're in. But there was a fuck ton of people crammed into this little ass bar and they were all singing. They were singing together to like whatever was on the radio. One time they were singing a different song. Like there's like, fuck your music, DJ. We're going to sing what we want to sing.
Wow. Was it any American music? Like any music you recognized?
Almost all of it was American music, but not so much with the singing stuff. But I really, 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 really liked this place, and it would be a 4.5 dildo bar. But everywhere I went in Germany that was a gay bar, smoking. Smoking was allowed indoors. It was like just so smoky. It was fucking horrible. And I think regardless of how much I love a bar, smoking is that's a 2 dildo deduction. So I'm giving Zum Schweig a 2.5 dildos.
Wow. Rough referees giving it rough penalties on that one, but understandable,
Yep. The bartender was amazing too. He had this whole thing of yelling at the customers, but you could for a while because it was all in German. I was like, oh, he is real mad about something. And then when the third person came up and started yelling back at him, it was this girl from Portugal that was involved. I was like, is this just his shtick? Because she spoke really good English, and she was like, I don't know, but it just seems like yelling is the thing to do.
Okay, so it wasn't just German language sounds yelly. Yeah, no. It was distincly different than that.
No, he was just doing the surly bartender thing, and apparently, if you understood everything that he was saying, it was very funny.
Oh, okay. How would you know, though?
Right. Yep. Okay, our website is Gayish.
Wait, are we going to do some announcements before we do this?
We could do that whenever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our 300 is coming up.
300th episode. We're going to dress like Greek people that are all ripply and muscled.
Oh God, I absolutely am not, but you should get people to. We're going to do a live stream of the episode.
We're going to live stream our 300th episode.
We haven't done a live stream in a while. I kind of forget that all during COVID we did monthly live streams.
Yeah.
Like, that was fun for a while, wasn't it?
That was a fun community time too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to know people, I think, a little bit better than we do now. I mean, we have other ways of getting to know them, like Discord and Spaces and
Patreon
and stuff. But yeah, our live stream for our 300th episode is going to be Sunday, September the 18th, 2022 at 2 p.m. Pacific time. There will be an event on Facebook, so you can look for that. And we're excited to do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been a while. I'm very excited to every 50th episode we do a Q&A.
Yep.
So those are always fun. We get to hang out. We get to chat with y'all. Y'all can hang out with each other in the chat room is always good. So I'm excited about this one.
It's going to be great. So a couple of things we want you to do, because it is a multiple of 50. We're doing a Q&A session, but this time we're going to do it a little bit different. We want you to send in questions and kind of try to fool us. Like, don't be dicks about it, but kind of try to fool us, because before we answer a question, Kyle and I are going to try to guess as a contest with each other. Is this from y'all? Like, did a listener submit this, or is it from my mom? Or did Derek find it on the internet, like on Reddit or something? Yep. So we want you to try to fool us and ask questions that sound like randos on Reddit or my mother.
I mean, you can do whatever you want with that, but just know we will be guessing whether it's listener, ma, or internet question.
Yep. To get us those questions, please, and you're going to fuck this up, but it's fine. Please try to send these to Gayish Podcast, the plus symbol, 300 at gmail.com. That's Gayish Podcast plus 300 at gmail.com. And we've got a rule set up so that Kyle and I don't see those emails. Only Derek does.
Another thing that we are doing, we're going to have, per usual, every 50, we do announcements and updates and things. But one of the things we're going to do is a competition for designing new merch for us. So if you would like to design something that may end up on a shirt, mug, butt plug, sponsored by Happy Hole Toys. That's not true.
Yeah.
But you can submit a design by September 11th. That will give us a week to decide. And then on the 300th, we will announce the winner of that. So submit your design. Some of the specs for those that love it is max file size of 200 megabytes. Please send in a PNG file type. These are things that I don't totally understand, but you probably will. The DPI should be at least 150, but no higher than 300. That does not add any quality or anything to it, so no need to go to more than that. Colors should use the sRGB color profile, and the max size of the print area for a t-shirt, which is most common thing we would use it for, is 12 inches by 16 inches. So send in your designs by September 11th. We'll pick our fave, and then it'll be available and on our site for people to buy.
Yeah, and if we pick yours to go on our site, we'll make sure that you get some free merch that has your design on it.
Yeah, we'll give you nice things and maybe etc. Include you, if you're like a designer, include your website, and then the winner we can like say your website, I guess.
Free advertising.
Yeah.
Free merch, free advertising. It'll be great.
Yeah. So 300 coming up. Mark your calendars.
Yep. Gayish Podcast plus 300 at gmail.com. Our website is gayishpodcast.com.
We are at Gayish Podcast on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Spaces, Discord. That's not totally true, but you can find us.
Our hotline, you can send us text messages or leave us voicemails, is 5855-GAYISH. That's 585-542-9474. Standard rates apply.
Our email, particularly if you want to send us this, is gayishpodcast +300 at gmail.com.
And our physical mailing address is Post Office Box 19882, Seattle, Washington, 98109. It's Gayest, the Straightest time, Kyle. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
You want to go first or second?
I'll go.
Great.
Okay, my gayest is I was decided I'm going to do more updates and decoration in my place.
Yeah.
So I potentially was in a little bit of a state of hypomania.
Yeah.
Look it up. I'm not your therapist.
Yeah.
But I bought a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
That's my gayest. My straightest is it all came and it's just sitting in boxes around. I was like, maybe that's kind of gay. I was like, I don't do stuff. But like, I would think gays would be very excited to add and decorate to their place. And I'm like,
You might be the person whose new coffee table is a big box that has an unassembled coffee table in it.
100%. What about you?
Let's see. So the straightest thing about me this week, I went to Dallas for this weekend for a fraternity conference, and I managed to do an entire weekend with just a backpack.
Wow.
Yeah, I just bare minimal.
Bear.
Yeah, I bare backpack.
You love that.
And I just think that, like, you know, minimalist packing is kind of a straight bro thing to do.
Yeah.
The gayest thing about me this week is my glee at discovering that JR's, which is a bar that will be the focus of a future local gay bar review down the line, they have Truly on tap. I was so excited. Like, no more cans of shame making me look like a twink. I got to, like, it looked like I had a big boy glass. And
but doesn't it still come out clear?
Yeah, it still comes out clear.
Okay.
But you know, that's better than hauling around a can with the little straw pushed through the tab, the opener.
You put a straw in the thing?
No,
That's
but
gay.
the bartenders in Dallas did it automatically without being asked. And I was like, what the fuck? I don't need this straw. You're killing the environment, you assholes. Anyway.
Cute.
Also, but while in Dallas, I got to hang out with Dallas Check off of our Discord server, and Joe in Dallas, who is one of our very successful porn curators. So that we've met before from Pride 48. It was really great to see some familiar friends. But at the bar last night, I got recognized while I was waiting for my Truly on tap to be poured for me, and Dallas Check and Joe in Dallas were at the other end of the bar. This guy comes up to me and he's like, "Wait, are you Dan?" I said, "What do you mean am I Dan?" "No, I'm not Dan." He said, "But there's there's a podcaster named Dan, right? That like does this show on sex stuff." I was like, "No, well, you're thinking of Dan Savage. I'm not Dan Savage." And he goes, "No." "Are you Mike or Kyle?" I was like, oh my God. Okay. So Andrew was a lot to handle. He insisted that I take a shot with him, which is fine, except it was not a keto shot. It was called a fuckleberry, which is, I guess, a Dallas delicacy. And he had his ex-husband, who is also a listener, was the bartender that made these fuckleberries for us. And it was a lot. But I ended up accidentally then meeting with 4 listeners last night at this random ass gay bar in Dallas, and
he thought you were Dan.
I don't know. I don't know.
Dan got recognized before any of it. That was your go-to is Dan.
I don't know. Andrew, explain yourself.
Andrew, that's hilarious and wild.
Yeah, he was a lot to handle, and got like some friends sort of.
But he was a listener, so he was great. He was just the right amount to handle.
Yeah. I really appreciated it. Like I will always be chill. Like, so feel free to say hey.
All right. Promises by Mike.
Yeah. Anyway, a listener's Gayest and Straightest. So this one comes to us from email. It was sent to us a while ago.
I will always be chill. I'm Mike. I'm the chillest. I will always be chill.
I'm the nicest person I know, Kyle. He says, just call me Dave. So this one's from Dave. Hey, Mike and Kyle, my straightest for last week was after a solid minute of me and my whole family all trying to recall what beef our local grocery store sold. I was the only one who could remember the brand name. My gayest is that unfortunately my first guess was Bishop Angus, and I didn't realize until after the words had left my mouth that I had just shouted out the name of a gay porn actor in my grandmother's house.
Bishop Angus? He better have a huge dick. Like if you're like named a meat name, like that's hilarious.
Beef, it's what's for dinner. That is it. Please again get your Q&As in for the live stream that's coming up. That's Gayish Podcast plus 300 at gmail.com. And
give us a review. Get us over that 1,000 point tipping point. Tell your friends to review, even if they don't listen. We don't really care. We just want their sweet reviews.
Yep.
And thank you to our Super Cat Bridgers, Josh Crowley, Stephen Porcio, Stossel, Harry Stahl, Josh Copeland, Jonathan Montañez, Forrest Neil, Patrick Martin, Anonymous, James Barrow, Steve Douglas, Explosive Lasagna, Just Jamie, Kevin Henderson, Tips and McStumbles, Donald Linsky, Thomas B. Dusty Sands, A. Coleman, Chris Castorian, and Jerome York. Thank you.
That's it. This has been Gayish from the Chris Cacciatorian Studios. I'm Mike Johnson.
I'm Kyle Getz. Until next week, be butch, be fabulous, be you. See you later.
See you in India. Categorized as a problem. Oh, are you okay?
swallowed wrong.
Oh.
Never done that.